and welcome to another episode of the Floridian Sports Broadcast. I want to thank you for joining me today for episode 3. Today is kind of a special episode. Unfortunately, I was supposed to have this on Thursday. However, I thought today would be better for a Friday afternoon post. And today we'll be basically going through the entire draft of the NFL and all the Floridian teams, being that of the Dolphins, the Jacksonville Jaguars, as well as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And a lot of great picks, a lot of shockers, and of course, a lot of decision making based on the rosters that are going on right now. A couple of players got released over the week, and a lot of it has to do with this draft. So it's definitely something that you want to take your time to analyze of how does this fit with this team and how does this make this team a little bit better. So with that being said, I'm going to go through the entire draft for every single pick for the Floridian teams. I had this episode specifically done because it might be longer than a usual episode. I'm trying to take it under the half an hour promise. I'll keep a promise with that. But I'm going to go first with the Dolphins, afterwards with the Jacksonville Jaguars picks, and then with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I'm going to go right off the paper, and we're just going to get started with the 6th pick in the draft by the Dolphins, Jaylen Waddle, wide receiver out of Alabama. The best punt returner in this draft, in my opinion. He's very versatile. The best vertical route runner in this draft, in my opinion, as well. I mean, this kid is speed, a good playmaker, and obviously with Will Fuller coming out of the Texans to be the addition for the Dolphins wide receiver core, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams. I mean, Tua, he has a lot of weapons, a lot of weapons. It's not even a joke. I mean, this guy, to me, Tua, is the best vertical passer in the game right now out of his draft class. What does that mean with his Jaylen Waddle pick? Well, it just means that you're going to see a lot of Waddle coming out, cross routes, probably 20 yards plus on catches. Of course, it is a little bit shocking. It really is. I mean, unfortunately, the Dolphins moved out of their 3rd pick, and then they moved back to 12, and then back to the 6th pick. And if they went to the 3rd pick, they definitely could have got, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, and they had the chance to get Devontae Smith, who was probably the next best guy on that board, but they didn't get him. Now, am I saying that they messed up by getting Waddle? Probably not, Brian Flores has been definitely looking at Waddle for a long time, ever since last year, had them on the draft boards. Devontae Smith, however, Heisman winner. I thought he was going to get picked at number 6 for the Miami Dolphins because I told you in that first video with the draft that I was expecting Jamar Chase to get picked up by the Bengals due to that connection with Joe Burrow. It happened, so I thought, Jamar Chase is off the board. It's either Waddle or Smith, and I thought Smith was the better receiver all around, but they definitely wanted something for the vertical, for the long ball, and they just want to build around Tua's game, and Tua's game is definitely throwing it deep and make sure it flies out. So it's a good pick for, the Dolphins, but it is very questionable. I question it a lot. Hopefully it does very well. Of course, within time being in the next 5 years, if Pitts and Jamar Chase and even Devontae Smith become Pro Bowlers, people will look back and say, oh, Chris Greer and the GM is what is he doing with the Dolphins offensively? But have faith. Even though I didn't expect this from the Dolphins at number 6, but he's going to be a good receiver. He's going to be a really good receiver for the Dolphins. Now I'm going to pick number 18. Of course, I had Najee Harris coming out of Alabama, the running back, which is the running back position to any Dolphin fan is something you want to get done already. It's a need that the Dolphin fans really see as it must be fixed now and then. Either the free agency where we, failed to get Jones out of Green Bay, and then now we failed to get Najee Harris coming out of this draft at pick number 18, and we had the chance to get him. Unfortunately, we decided to go somewhere else. The good news is it was for a need that's even more important than the running back situation for the Dolphins. More important than any offensive, defensive, is the top priority for the Dolphins. You got to get something for the pass rush, and they did it in the 18th pick. They ended up getting Jalen Phillips out of Miami. He's a great guy on the edge, terrific pass rusher, as I said before. And unfortunately, he has a lot of history on his injury. A lot of concussions out of UCLA, which medically retired him over there at UCLA. He comes to Miami. He gets injured again, unfortunately. Of course, the one thing that's really huge about him is his insane physical attributes. I mean, this kid, if you put him in the weight room, he could be the next Myles Garrett. Of course, Myles Garrett's coming out of, Cleveland, the Browns' first pick overall. And this kid, if it wasn't for the injuries and his medical, he could have been a top 5 pick in this year's draft. But he definitely slumped down due to injury. There's no other way to say it. But the Dolphins, if he's cleared, they got a huge steal in this year's draft. So it's definitely something that you got to be excited about, especially if you want to see the Dolphins, not really blitz a lot and just work on like the secondary. I mean, to give you an example what I really mean by that, I mean, Brian Flores, about 39% of the Dolphins blitz last time this year. 39%. About more than 1/4 of the year, the Dolphins were blitzing. And you didn't see a lot of sack production. You didn't see a lot of pressure to a couple of quarterbacks. Maybe in that Rams game we had Jared Goff going insane, but it's just terrible. It's just terrible. We're 31st in the pass rush. The only team we were better than was the Lions, and to be better than the Lions is like being better than nobody. No defense to Detroit, but it is what it is. You can't just. You can't be a playoff contending team with a terrible pass rush. It just won't work. So that's definitely going to elevate Miami. And I expect them to probably do less of a blitz this year, having that of Wilkins and, of course, Phillips going after the quarterbacks now. There should be less pressure on blitzing these guys and more, focus on the secondary, which is probably the strongest thing on Miami's defense. Now, I'm going to go to pick number 36 in the second round. Now, this pick is a little bit interesting. And the reason why this pick is interesting is because Bobby McCain, the captain and veteran at safety, he's gone. He's gone. Unfortunately, the Dolphins released him over the week, actually yesterday on Thursday. And, Lord and behold, this pick is probably the reason why. Javon Holland out of Oregon, he's a perfect fit for Flores' defense. As I write down here, right, can play deep safety, man-to-man, out of the slot. He only helps. That's everything. He can help on the sideline coverage. He's also really good tackler on speedy receivers, which, of course, as we saw against the Chiefs, we couldn't really tackle Hill. We couldn't really tackle Diggs at all in the Bills game. And they were issues for us. And this guy could possibly start right away with McCain out. And, we'll see production immediately, And when the schedule comes out, we'll have to see. But I know that there's a couple of receivers that have really speedy slot receivers. Of course, one of them being Hollywood Brown coming out of Baltimore. I believe we do play Baltimore this year. So you'll love to see that matchup if he does become a starter by that time. And of course, I have to say it. We could have traded that pick. I thought we were gonna trade up a little bit if we weren't gonna get Harris to get that kid out of North Carolina, that running back. Javonte Williams shows here he was picked by the Broncos right before us, and you have to wonder. Do the Dolphins really need a running back? Yeah, sure they have Gaskins and Ahmed, but do they really need a running back if they're not going after these guys aggressively in this year's draft? And next year's draft, there's not really a lot of running backs you can pick from. In my perspective, this year was a terrific year to get at least one of those guys. And you have to get one of those guys. You have to get that, home run hitter, power through back. Unfortunately, they failed at that. However, they did get a running back, but I'll talk about that later in the 7th round. I'm going to go straight into pick number 42 in the 2nd round here. Liam Eichenberg, an offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. I don't really feel much about this pick. He says that he can play all 5 positions, but unfortunately at Notre Dame, he never played center, and that's kind of like a position that the Dolphins need at the moment for Tua. According to this right here at Notre Dame, he only allowed 1.1% of pressure off the pass blocks, which is huge, and obviously something to protect Tua. Of course, we lost a couple of old defensive tackles, especially in Eric Flowers, which is a shocker to me. But then again, if you look at the difference in payments and all that, I mean, it's definitely a money saver. The Dolphins are saving a lot, and they're getting these players for cheap, and they're good products. They're all young. Now, he's not as fast. He doesn't play like terrific or sexy or anything like that. You know what I mean? But according to some sources, stats don't lie. Stats don't lie. I mean, he's very, very good at pass blocks. So, you could probably elevate him on the rush, but I think Tua will be very happy with that pick. Of course, we're going to go to round 3. The shocker of the draft to me, Hunter Long out of Boston College. I mean, if you're going to get a tight end, they could have got Brevin Jordan out of UM, which would be another great pick out of the University of Miami. I think Brevin Jordan was a better tight end than Long, of course, in the sense of like the pass catch. But, they kind of like saw something else in this tight end. And what I mean by that, he's a hell of a blocker. Because not only does he catch well, but he also blocks really well. And he's probably going to go for that second spot in the tight end room, even though, yeah, sure, there's like 7 tight ends right now currently on the Dolphins. But I think Brian Flores knows what he's doing. He's going to make him really competitive. Because Durham Smith, he's the second tight end on my board for the Dolphins right now on the roster. And he had a couple of plays last year where there were definite moments where, like, if Tua gets down, the game's over. And Smith was very much that guy that missed his assignment. He wasn't a good blocker. He's not a good blocker still. So I expect Long to definitely be a good tight end. I don't know much about his production. Of course, I believe that 2 tight ends in offense are definitely the best offense you can have, such as the Patriots with Aaron Hernandez and Gronkowski. This could be something similar that Brian Flores is trying to do with Hunter Long. But of course, he has to beat out Smythe for that position. And I believe he will, just because based on his blocking and catch. So the Dolphins don't really have any picks for in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round. So I'm going to go straight to 7th round. We did make 2 picks in the 7th round. Of course, we have another offensive tackle out of University of Massachusetts, Larnell Coleman. According to this, he's a developing tackle, 2nd largest wingspan, which is probably going to be, a prospect that we're not going to start at all. I'm sorry to say that, but this kid, he has the attributes in like body and all that, but he doesn't have a lot of skill on tape that I saw that's like, eye-opening that can say, oh, he's going to be a starter within the next 2 years. He's a practice squad guy, but that's usually what you find in this, the 7th round. So you can't really be mad about that. It's kind of one of those picks where it's like, that's a project you want to work on, especially if you're the Dolphins looking for more offensive tackles. Because you can't have, that many offensive tackles. You can't be too greedy. So we're going to go past that into the next pick and last pick, of course. The Dolphins finally got a running back in the draft. Really late, but this got to be their guy, because if they felt confident that they weren't going to trade up for another running back, then they must have felt that this guy in the 7th round was their guy. Now, of course, I'm talking about Jared Dokes, running back out of Cincinnati. According to my stats, I basically have him as a, 5'11", 228-pound guy. So he's not very much like, he can bulldoze his way. He's not a home run hitter, as I said before, which the Dolphins needed at that running back position. However, I do believe he's going to be very well in the offense. He's probably going to be the 4th string, the last guy in that room at running back. So we're not going to see much of him this upcoming season. But, you never know. He might get playing time for the special teams. So you definitely have to look after that. I still expect Myles Gaskins to be the starter this year. We did pick up Brown coming out of the Rams. And, of course, we have Salvin Ahmed. But Ahmed, I don't think he's at Gaskins' level at this moment. I feel confident with Gaskins coming in as running back, but we definitely have to improve within the next 2 years on a first-round running back sometime in the future, because I don't think Gaskins is going to be lasting on this team for more than 2 years. So that is the Dolphins. Of course, I'm going to go straight to Jacksonville. The Jaguars got their guy. everyone in Jacksonville should be happy right now. Even though, of course, the first round quarterback situation for the first pick isn't always the guy, especially since 2016, that all first round, first pick quarterbacks have basically been traded away. But I'm going to go right into it right now. Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback out of Clemson. I mean, he's a terrific pocket passer, very strong, tall. I mean, he's rarely accurate with the ball. He has legs. So we definitely saw it in the college football playoffs in the past couple of years. Only lost 4 games in his collegiate career. And I think they said that he won every single game in high school. I mean, this kid is just straight a winner. He doesn't like to lose at all. He won't let Jacksonville lose these easy close games, which was a lot of close games for Jacksonville coming at the end of the stretch. So I expect him to be well. However, some things I wrote down that are probably something you definitely want to look at. From the looks of it, he's the 4th best quarterback ever, scouted out based on Mel Kiper Jr., of course, of ESPN. He's been doing it for at least 42 years, which tells you a lot. He's the best prospect since Andrew Luck, which, has been a while. And he's going into a situation in Jacksonville where the offense and Urban Meyer, he is going to have great success in his first year. I wouldn't be worried about this kid. A couple of the names just to start off. James Robinson, who had 1,000 yards rushing last year. Very surprising, but he seems to be a really good running back that has definitely elevated past his expectations. Marvin Jones Jr. coming out from the Detroit Lions. They picked him up over the free agency. Of course, the offensive line starters, all of them are coming back. So all veteran O-line. You got Shark, you have Marvin. Of course, they have, I'm going to discuss it later on for the rest of their draft, but they did pick up some tight end and wide receiver help, which I thought was really interesting. And, of course, another running back to match up with James Robinson. I think they could possibly cooperate together. But I'm going to go into that after this pick. But one thing I did want to mention before I go into the next pick, you have to look at the history with this team. According to this right now, the last first-round quarterback to win a Super Bowl was Eli Manning. And that was, I believe that was 2004. So that's been a long, long while since a first-round, first-pick quarterback has proven to a franchise that he's a winning quarterback for a Super Bowl. Of course, Jacksonville is riddled with just terrible luck at quarterback. The last one was Mark Brunell, which led them to 4 consecutive playoff appearances. Actually, I believe 2 of them were at the AFC Championship game. And of course, Blake Bortles, the UCF legend as himself, went to the AFC game in 2017 against the New England Patriots. Couldn't finish off. They had a chance, but besides Blake Bortles and Brunell, it hasn't been an easy road for Jacksonville. So you have to hope that this kid is the final and last one for this team. You just have to hope and pray, but I believe he's going to be very successful under the really talented OC and Darrell Bevell. So he's going to be fine. Now I'm going to go into the next pick. I really, really thought that the wide receiver Latavius Tony will be available at this pick. Unfortunately, he got picked up before by the Giants. Can't complain at that. He's a really good kid, but that was a wide receiver that they needed to have to build up and finish up their wide receiver room. But this is a really questionable pickup. Travis Etienne, the running back out of Clemson. He's a power hitter, home run hitter, something that the Dolphins definitely could have also got if they didn't get the time to get Harris. But it's very questionable, though. You have James Robinson coming out of 1,000-yard rushing season. This kid is off the best season that he had in his entire career, and you want to get a running back in the first round? The only thing I can see is definitely that Urban Meyer, he definitely discussed about getting speed added to his team in Jacksonville, and he definitely got it with this pick. I'm looking at it right now. This kid, 4.45 on this pro day, 40-yard dash. So that's definitely, let alone speaks for itself. And of course, the highlight reel, it's just, it's over and over of the 50-plus yard dashes to the end zone past some of these guys. So he's definitely a pickup for what he wanted in speed. He can be in the backfield. He can be in the slot. He can even flex out to the wide. He's a really good receiving running back. and he definitely elevates the offensive limits that Jacksonville could go to. So it's definitely a fun, really entertaining offense, and I'm really waiting to, for that first game. I'm ecstatic. I'm ecstatic to see that first game in Jacksonville. I think that's gonna be a really fun team to watch offensively. Now we go to round 2. I believe this pick at number 33 in round 2. This is a direct shock to C.J. Henderson, who got drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars last year in the first round, coming out of Florida. He stumbled a little bit last year. I mean, of course, he started off well in that first game with an interception against the Colts, but it's unfortunate that they're doing this. I mean, they get the Tyson Campbell out of Georgia. He's another great corner. I mean, he allowed opposing quarterbacks to complete 59% of completed passes when he was targeted, which is huge. And of course, from my looks of it, I believe this kid is probably going to be taking CJ's position at corner. The loser, they're still going to start. They're probably going to start at nickel, I can only assume. But CJ, he's a hell of an athlete. But it just sucks if you're a Jacksonville fan, because you want CJ Henderson to really wake up. I want him. I thought this kid was the best corner coming in the draft last year, and it looks like Diggs' brother out of the Cowboys has seemed to be better, and he's not even real corner. So I'm kind of puzzled why C.J. Henderson is struggling. I'm hoping he takes a huge leap being competitive against Campbell, but only time will tell, especially in the training. The next pick coming out of the second round, Walker Little, an offensive tackle from Stanford. The kid's, he's not little. I'm going to let you know that right now. Above 300 pounds. He played about 790. Let me see if I've got this. 796 of 804 snaps at left tackle. I mean, that's pretty damn impressive. Because this kid, he has some injury issues. Unfortunately, according to this, they have a season-ending knee injury in 2019 and opted out of the 2020 season. So he definitely has missed a lot of playing time within a year and a half or two. He could be that guy just because of the situation going in Jacksonville. Cam Robinson, he got franchise tagged. And the only reason I believe he got franchise tagged is because they're not expecting to have a long-term deal with him. They might get rid of Cam Robinson by 2022, where Little could be a starter if he does, show his true potential. Because his sophomore year, he was selected to Pac-12 first team. And from the looks of it, he's a very, very well left tackle. He can't really, play another position, unfortunately. I was looking into it, but I don't believe he's that versatile. But it's a really good offensive tackle pick, especially for the situation based on Cam Robinson. So I believe you won't see him in the first year unless he really does compete well in training camp. Only time will tell. But I expect him to be available 2022. Cam Robinson's not with the team anymore, unless they do switch up and make him that deal, which I highly doubt. Because when you get franchise tagged, you're not finding a long-term deal unless you're really in the media. But round 3, we're going to go straight to a really good position here. Andre Cisco out of Syracuse. Now, this is a pick that I think really is well added up, especially for the third round. I thought this kid was much more better in the third round. He's a playmaker in the secondary. According to this, right now out of Syracuse, he had 12 interceptions, which is the most in FBS in 2018 and 2019. To give you an idea what 12 interceptions is on a team like Syracuse compared to the Jacksonville secondary, last year in the 2020 season for Jacksonville, they only had 10 interceptions. 10 interceptions. So this is definitely a guy that can get you above that level, hopefully break a ceiling in the secondary for Jacksonville, another playmaker as it is. So then that's the best type of secondary you want to have, just full of playmakers. So he's unfortunately been out. We don't know if he's going to be cleared by the end of the season or even the beginning of training camp. Hopefully he's cleared by then. We can only assume he's going to be cleared, but according to a couple of sources, he torn his ACL when he collided with a teammate during a pre-game warm-up. So it's very what are the odds? You know what I mean? That he gets injured like that. So hopefully he's not injury prone, but I expect him to be very well for that secondary. It's a great pickup, I think, in the 3rd round. So he's probably going to compete for Gerald Wilson on free safety. I expect him to get that starting job at free safety. This kid, when you look at the film, he's been an incredible free safety, especially in coverage. So I'm going to go based off of that to say he's a starter. Next in round 4, I might butcher the name a little bit. This is defensive tackle Duff. I want to say Duffili, but it's probably Duffel out of the University of Southern Cal. It's another great guy coming out of Southern California. I mean, he played defensive tackle and nose tackle, so he's very versatile. I mean, 6'3", 315 pounds, which is huge for a defensive tackle coming out of college. I mean, that's just absurd. The average is probably like around like 250, 260 for some of these defensive tackles. You're talking about 315 pounds, and he plays nose and defensive tackle. He's going to be a jumbo type of guy, a guy that plays inside and outside. He's going to be moving back and forth down in the trenches, so he's definitely a good pickup for the 4th round. Of course, as you know, 315 at 6'3". He's a little bit bigger on that side, but I believe he can bring in a lot of conditioning, and hopefully he does become this ridiculous powerhouse. So very versatile kid out there at pick 106. Pick 121 in the 4th round, Jordan Smith, the outside linebacker out of Alabama, Birmingham. Now this kid, this I feel like it's a steal. This I feel like it's a huge steal, because I'm looking right now on a couple of stories. I'm going to just read you off something that's kind of fitting, right? Something a little bit fitting. If you're a Jaguars fan, you're going to love to hear this. He's 6'7", 264 pounds. 6'7", 264 pounds. Now, that's already NFL built. He's NFL size. You don't need to like worry about, oh, if he does start, is he going to be... He's going to be able to get to the quarterback or even play well out there on the outside. Now, he was at Florida University in the beginning of his collegiate career. Unfortunately, he got involved in a credit card scam, so he got released by Florida's program. He went to the community college, specifically Butler Community College, where, let's be honest, at 6'7", you're not gonna like be benched at a community college. You know what I mean? This kid, 22.5 tackles for loss, 11 sacks. And I'm just looking at the next year when he goes to, Alabama and Birmingham. His first season at Alabama and Birmingham. Read this, watch this. 3 pass breakups, 4 forced fumbles, and 10 sacks. 1 year, first year, Alabama and Birmingham. He's a proven pass rusher. And the only proven pass rusher on Jacksonville's roster is Josh Allen. Now, am I saying that he's going to be at a level where Josh Allen's at? Probably not. I mean, only time will tell, hopefully within his 3rd year in the NFL. But to see that the Jacksonville Jaguars got another born-bred pass rusher, which is a need that every team needs, especially where they want to contend. This shows that they chose the right pick defensively and a huge steal in the 4th round. I would not be surprised if his name comes up a lot and he gets more than about 5.5 sacks this upcoming year if he does become a starter. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if he even averages a sack. It's insane to say that, but I would not be surprised if he even averages a sack per game next year. Now, I think he does fit well in the 3-4 scheme that's going on in Jacksonville. I did see him a lot on a pass edge rush, so he is a good outside linebacker, but I think very well on a 3-4 scheme, he's going to get a lot of quarterbacks mixed up. Now, based on round 5, as I said before, the tight end position got picked up, and it's a good one, a really good one. To me, it's the 3rd best on the board. I don't know why he dropped to 5th round, kind of like a scratch in the head, but Luke Farrell, tight end out of Ohio State. Now, I'm going to read you some stats, and I want you to tell me what you feel about this. 34 catches for 380 yards and 4 touchdowns in 44 career games. Now, it's not a lot. It's not a crazy stat, but you have to remind yourself he was mostly used as a solid run blocker. He was used as a guy that can, block for dominant, incredible, defensive tackles that come out of the Big Ten. Of course, he plays a lot against Michigan State. Of course, in practice, he probably played against some of the Bosa brothers. I mean, they're saying here that he played 2 years under Urban Meyer, which just shows that Urban has that connection already. He's playing with his former coach out there in Jacksonville. And a pass-catching tight end. Ooh, you gotta be happy. You gotta be ecstatic. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is getting more weapons, and this kid Luke is a weapon on the run and the pass. As a tight end, he's NFL ready to start. I'll tell you that right now. Round 6, they do get the wide receiver. This is the last pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars in round 6. It's a questionable pick at most, but it's definitely something that it's another sleeper late in the rounds. That Jacksonville made a really great pick. Of course, Jalen Camp, the wide receiver out of Georgia Tech. He didn't get a lot of catches in his first 3 years, only 19 catches, but you have to remind yourself, Georgia Tech is an offense that loves the option, and if they have the option, they're running the ball. I mean, that's a team that doesn't really look at the receivers at all. 19 catches in 3 years. No one's going to look at that. That's a guy that's going to be 6th round, let alone just because there's nothing on film for him, really. Unless you want to go look at the practice film, of course. But, of course, he accelerated that in his last year. 29 catches, 43 yards, and 4 touchdowns in 2020. I'm going to go based on the paper right here. His pro day. If this kid was in the NFL Combine, he would have been breaking records. One of the records, of course, being that the bench press, 225 pounds, 30 times. 30 times. That would have been a record at the position of wide receiver if he went to the NFL Combine. So this kid is a tough guy, very solid, 6'2", 220-pound physical receiver with a lot of speed. Now, I'm not saying he's DK Metcalf, but come on. 30 times for a receiver benching off 225 pounds. And look at his 40 time. 4.43 in his 40-yard dash. I mean, that's pretty decent, especially for a guy at his size and his weight. But, I mean, that's brute strength. That's ridiculous speed at a position where, you're not even used at all in Georgia Tech. I'm looking at this, and it's like, this guy has high potential. He's probably going to be automatically in special teams just based off what he can do. But if he really does elevate his game, which I believe the offensive coordinator is going to put him in a lot, in a couple of special teams and some different type of plays that you want to have, either a slot or even wide out. You have him crossing routes or even a vertical. He's going to get those, 50-50 balls, not a doubt. This is a player that will grab the ball aggressively in the air over guys, and he's going to be highly a great receiver if he has that potential met with him. So I believe this is a terrific pick. A lot of great sleepers in Jacksonville in the late rounds. They decked their guy, and the offense, I mean, this is going to be a fun offense to watch in Jacksonville. Now, the last team, the Tambay Buccaneers. As I said before, in the other videos, they re-signed every single person that you want to re-sign. The entire Super Bowl team from last year re-signed with Tampa Bay. Now, that just shows that this draft is kind of like, let's just build up a little bit. Let's just, tweak here, tweak there, see what the future holds. I mean, on the 32nd pick, I thought they were going to go with Mayfield out of Michigan. Offensive tackle, really well for the run block, but they went defense. They decided, hey, let's get another linebacker in our room. They went with Joe Tyron out of Washington, outside linebacker. Now, I want you to understand something. I'm going to read you to the depth right now. Shaquille Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul, 2 Pro Bowlers already on that roster at the position, and they got another linebacker for the outside in the first round. So that's just, it's like death is incredible for this Tampa team. This Tampa team is ready for years of dominance, and I don't expect anybody from the NFC South to come out besides Tampa, to be honest with you. That entire division is rebuilding, so Tampa's in a great position. Drew Brees left New Orleans. Of course, there's some speculation with the Falcons. They, fired Dan Quinn, the last head coach in Atlanta. Not really, meeting the standards he had in 2017 when he brought them to the Super Bowl. But of course, Kyle Shanahan was the OC, and Kyle Shanahan was probably the real reason why Matt Ryan's even an MVP. No disrespect to Matt Ryan, but he took Jimmy G, Garoppolo to a Super Bowl in San Fran, so I expected the Falcons to kind of drop offensively. Of course, Panthers starting anew. Sam Darnold, I still don't understand why they got rid of him. He's basically another Zach Wilson, but, time will tell. Now, of course, this kid is 6'5", 262 pounds. At his pro day, 465 40-yard dash. It's pretty good at his size and his position, I'm not going to lie to you. Now, the thing that really got me, though, at Washington, he had a very explosive first step. It looks like here he didn't, had a full season as a starter, only one season as a full season as a starter. He opted out due to COVID in 2020. But the year prior to that, he had 41 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss, and 8 sacks. And of course, these are multiple sack games against Washington State, Oregon State, even Utah. Multiple sack games. This is great value for this entire, linebacker room. This is a great pick. Obviously, it doesn't help out a lot with Brady on the offense, but he doesn't need a lot. Brady doesn't need a lot in the offense. And to build up for the future over there in Tampa defensively, if, one of these Pro Bowlers does leave, it's definitely a great pick for safety and especially for the depth. Now, speaking of depth, round 2, this is a great pick to me. I feel like the kid they picked up was at least the 5th best quarterback coming out of this draft. Kyle Trask out of Florida. A Gator got picked up by a Floridian team. Here at the Floridian podcast, we love to see that. As a Floridian, I love to see that as well. This kid came out of a Heisman type of year, his senior year. Unfortunately, he didn't really get to start until 2019. Because, of course, Felipe Franks, he got injured, which meant that Kyle Trask elevated to be the starter, had to show his worth, and he definitely showed out, especially coming back a lot in that Georgia game and throughout the Auburn, and just went through the SEC pretty damn easy, if you ask me. Of course, he didn't really, beat out Alabama, but who does? SEC championship game didn't really meet offensive firepower, but he definitely showed out. And I'm going to just show you a couple of numbers right now based on that senior season. 4,283 yards in that season, which is a ridiculous number, let alone for a Florida quarterback. Ever since Tim Tebow, you're not going to see anything close to that. 69 career touchdowns. Of course, as I said before, he started basically midway through 2019, so just 69 career touchdowns. It's a good record if you're like a year and a half as a starter. You know what I mean? It's not like a 4-year type of thing for him. And 69 career touchdowns, it's a phenomenal feat. He had a Heisman type of year. Now, the thing is, though, at 6'5" and 234 pounds, he's a pro-typical type NFL quarterback. And a lot of the scouts were talking about his arm strength, athleticism, and footwork. Footwork, I can definitely tell. I feel like he has a really odd type of way when he's in the pocket. Athleticism, I don't know much about that in a sense of questioning it, because he can definitely, force his body on the 1-yard line and definitely, go in there and, sacrifice himself for a real spot for a, completion, first down, or even a touchdown. Now, if you mean like athleticism, like jumping over guys, running like a crazy good 40 time, probably not. But I'm going to let you know right now, he has a lot of years. I don't expect him to start over Tom Brady, obviously, unless Tom says so. Tom is the man over there in Tampa, so you can't really. I give him about 2 years in Tampa, and within 2 years, I think Kyle Trask will be a dominant force in the NFL to be definitely be reckoned with. But of course, as I was going to mention on the arm strength, that shouldn't be a problem. I mean, Bruce Arians even says you saw some of the throws he's done, especially in the Georgia game and the clutch factor, and just going against some of the best defensive, corners and just the best defensive players in overall college football in the SEC. He was giving out great passes. I didn't see a lot of overthrows. I don't think arm strength is going to be a problem. He definitely isn't like a Justin Herbert type of prodigy, but he can definitely develop really well accuracy and have his athleticism and footwork within the years that he stands behind Tom Brady. So this is a pick that I find it really well in the second round. I don't believe he would have dropped to the third round at all, especially with Kellen Mond being out there with Minnesota after him. But this is a great pick. This is Bruce Arians. He's building for the future. So as a Tampa fan, I'm definitely excited for that. Now, of course, I'm going to go to round 3. Robert Heinze, or Heinze, I might butcher that name. He's the offensive tackle of Notre Dame. Now, this is a kid you got to love out of the Senior Bowl. If you watch the Senior Bowl this year, he usually plays that type of tackle for Notre Dame, but he kicked to play guard, played center, and he was doing pretty damn well. I mean, his instincts, let alone as a guy on the offensive tackle side, he is a smart player. He is a tackle that will not make mistakes. And what I mean by mistakes, 863 total snaps in the 2020 season, 0 penalties, no holdings, no up the yard on the field. He's a really robotic type of player with great instincts, and he can play. He's versatile. He can play any position, as we saw in the Senior Bowl. I mean, look back at his tape in the Senior Bowl. He was back and forth off the offensive line. I mean, he's a great tackle. He'd be a great guard, and maybe he can't elevate a little bit at the center position, but he has time. I don't expect him to start right away unless there is a couple of injuries that riddle the offensive line. And I expect him to go out, as I said before, I expected the first round to be an offensive lineman for Tampa, but they definitely made a great choice in that third round. Now, off to the fourth round, we have a wide receiver out of North Texas. I mean, it's not a huge pickup in the fourth round. He definitely could have dropped to the fifth or sixth round, so it's kind of a questionable pick. Jaylen Waddle. He's 5'9", 175 pounds. Now, I'm not saying that he can't be, productive in the NFL or he can't be a good receiver in the NFL. Of course, Devontae Smith can prove us all wrong when he's out in Philadelphia. I expect him to prove us wrong in Philadelphia, but he won't win the physical matchups, And he wasn't really used a lot on those type of balls where you say, go grab it and go get it on the vert, or, he wasn't really well, kind of like a pitch or whatever, but even a dig, he didn't even do dig at all. According to what I really saw most on the tape, I mean, he's not even a speedster. You have him at a 4.46 40-yard dash. That's pretty decent at the wide receiver position, of course, but I've seen a couple of linebackers that can even do that same stat line that come out of the second round. We have probably some value. I expect him to be I expect him to be in special teams. And the reason why I say special teams, because the one thing that I find interesting about this pick, it's a great team fit. This is a guy that has explosive with the ball when he has it in his hands. I mean, to me, I saw a lot of the production on screen passes and on crossing routes. Now, screen passes, there's not a lot of receivers on Tampa Bay, as good as they are with Antonio Brown and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I don't see a lot of guys having success on the screen. And bringing in Darden, he's going to be a guy that can definitely open the playbook offensively for this team. And I expect him to use him a lot for just screens, really. I mean, crossing routes, they already have their guys for that, as we know. But it should be really interesting if they really do, pass by the limitations they have with screen passes, especially with him. Now, I do see him basically going to the special teams immediately. I believe he's going to compete very well for that punt and kick return position. I think he's going to be a great punt returner for this team. I mean, I know that there's going to be a couple of preseason games this year, so we probably would see a lot of talent on the field in those first couple of games at preseason. So I expect he competes very well, and I hope that he gets a starting job there. Now, I'm going to go straight to round 5. And this is another good one. This is another good addition to the depth chart. KJ Britt, inside linebacker from Auburn. Now, he was a team captain, right? So, team captain, a lot of experience, a lot of years at Auburn. And, prior to the thumb surgery that he did have, he was the best tackler on that Auburn team. This guy is a purebred tackler. I think he's very, very, very high potential when it comes to being a linebacker. Now, of course, as I said before, this adds depth. So let me just read you the chart inside linebacker right now. Devin White, Levante David, and Kevin Minter. I mean, he's probably going to be the 4th guy in that room, but he still is going to be a part of that team somewhere. Probably like special teams, of course, but he could even start. Who knows? I mean, if he does come out to be, what he was prior to the thumb surgery, I do expect him to start. I mean, this kid is 6'1" with really long arms, according to at the pro days. And of course, the pro days this year were a little bit questionable with a couple of the stats because it's like, you don't know if they fixated it to give him a better prospect on the draft, but 30 3/4 inches on his arms. That's long arms right there. Long arms. He's a sure tackler, as you know. And I don't know much about, if he's going to make it well. Because obviously Auburn, as we know, they do a lot of the 4-3 scheme over there in Auburn. He's going to have to adapt to Todd Bowles. I mean, a hybrid 3-4 scheme for this kid might be a little bit difficult. However, I don't expect them to start right away. So hopefully within those, couple of practices and within the years coming by, hopefully he does produce to become that type of starter that could, commit to the team defensively out of the 3-4 hybrid. Now I'm going to go to round 7. Round 7, another pick defensively. Kind of like a project pick, if you ask me. They got Chris Wilcox, corner out of BYU, 6'2", 295 pounds. He's long and fast. He ran a 4.31 40-yard dash and posted a 37.5-inch vertical leap, which is impressive as it is, but with pro day stats like that, you shouldn't be a 7th-round pick, so they probably knew something was up. However, he's definitely a guy that has raw technique as a corner. He's going to be a project probably for the practice team. So he has potential. Is he going to be immediately right away? Probably not, but he has really great potential. He's probably going to be an ace on the special teams, because he has a background of a track and field, and with his height, his speed, according to his pro day, he seems to be something that could possibly be a punt returner. Even a kick returner if you want to. But I don't really see him getting that starting position or even being in the game yet. Now, the next thing is going to be the last pick, Mr. Irrelevant. Pick 259, Mr. Irrelevant, Grant Stard, linebacker out of Houston. Now, of course, everyone loves Mr. Irrelevant. This is the last pick in the draft for all the teams that are out there. And it's kind of a pick that it's expected to be the last pick. Now, he plays fast, physical. His film showed that, he was a really guy that was sacrificing his body for every single play. Plays with a lot of heart. However, he did have some questionable, really questionable plays defensively as a linebacker. I mean, he's not very good in coverages, specifically cover 2. And, I mean, changing directions, he just looked lost out there. So I expect him to be a practice squad player. If not, he could possibly be cut from this team. This is the only player in this year's draft out of all the Floridian teams where I feel like it's going to be cut. Of course, it's Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, so you expect him to not really have a good, fair chance. But chance or not, this kid's gonna give you everything he's got. And if they have Hard Knocks in Tampa this year, you would love this character. I'm gonna let you know a quote that I thought was really interesting from the GM, Jason Litch. Now, he was comparing him to Larry Izzo. So Dolphin fans must love this. Out of comparison from Larry Izzo with the Dolphins, he was comparing him to an undersized linebacker with a huge heart. Now, with a huge heart, would that be enough to make an NFL roster? Only time will tell. I really do hope he does make it to at least the last guy in that linebacker room. I mean, there's a lot of talented guys defensively. He's going to learn a lot from a couple of them, especially from a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator in Todd Bowles. But it's a good story to watch, and I hope to hear more about him coming out of Tampa if he does make it on a practice team or even the 54-man roster. Now, that was a much longer video, of course. As I said before, this was kind of a video based off that I want to do just to explain the results and how they felt with the teams. I'm going to go on the grades right now. I'll give the Dolphins an A in the draft. Of course, they didn't get the guys they expected them to get. However, they still made powerhouse plays to build this team and fix the little holes that they had at pass rush, at receiver, and of course, a little build up of offensive tackles. So that was nice as well. Jacksonville, basically summarized, they got a B+. I mean, of course, I can't give them that low of a grade because of Trevor Lawrence, and if you have Trevor Lawrence, that's your whole draft there. But to get a running back in the first round as well after James Robinson's 1,000-yard season, it's very odd. To get a corner that can possibly become a nickel if CJ Henderson does prove himself again, kind of like a good pickup, but it's questionable because you already have somebody at the position that you put a lot of faith in. So it's a lot of picks that are probably made by Urban Meyer's will of the speed, but of course this is going to be a really competitive offseason for a lot of the Jacksonville players trying to keep their jobs. And for Tampa, I got to give them an A, because even though they didn't fix the holes here and there, but there's not a lot of fix, especially when you have the entire team back after a Super Bowl. So a lot of linebackers, a lot of great guys. Mr. Irrelevant, great story I hope to hear a lot about. But those are basically my grades for these teams. And all the Floridian teams will probably have a great offseason. I know May 14th will be the first training days. So, coming up soon, we're going to be hearing a lot from the camps. Now, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for listening to a couple of my analysts on the draft picks from last week. And of course, if you want to subscribe, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you here every single Thursday. Of course, I missed out this Thursday. I did an episode Wednesday, but I wanted to make sure I got a lot of this, information out very well. So I took some time off from Thursday to really evaluate everything that I had. And I want to thank you for at least waiting a day just to join me on this episode if you made it this far back. I know it's been a really long episode compared to my usual hour-and-a-half episodes of the updates, but it's a very exciting NFL season for the Floridian teams, and I cannot wait, and I'm pretty sure everyone is anticipating a successful year for all these teams again. So I just want to thank you, and I hope to see you again, and good night.